Hello, and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar, Hoke here, Tom Jacobs. How are we doing?
Yeah, good. It's going to be a big week for the DP World Tour, Sky. We should get. So when Zach's picks, are they tonight, tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you got Zach Johnson's picks for the USA team tomorrow night, and then Luke Donald makes his European Ryder Cup picks after this Amiga European Masters. Sky, how much do you think he put into stock last week's Czech Masters? Because there was a lot of players that were in the mix, and ultimately then Todd Clements beats Matt Wallace, and I don't know that either of those really had Ryder Cup implications.
Man, it's so hard to not have a recency bias, right? It's got to be very, very difficult. I think the Europe team in the past has done an incredibly good job at just being statistically driven, so you hope that they wouldn't be. But at the same time, the only reason I think they can be is getting more eyes on Ludwig, right? Like that's the only thing that I think really might matter short term, is just there's not enough out there on him compared to the other guys, in which can make him a pick. I guess if I'm pretty firm on who I want on the team. Do you have a firm stance?
Yeah, I wanted Moronk and Højgaard. I don't know if that's necessarily Nikolai Højgaard. I don't know if that's necessarily changed. The one person I think, and we'll get into this a little bit soon.
So who's the third then? That would be the question. Or is that a lock with Sepp? Or do you think you can off your team?
Yeah, I guess Sepp's in for me.
Right? I think Sepp's an absolute.
Yeah. So I think it's the only way it changes now is if Bob gets pipped by like Yannick Paul.
Yeah. So there's basically two spots right now, assuming Bob has the final spot.
And like initially I wanted Nikolai Højgaard and Adrian Moronk, and I don't know if that's necessarily changed too much for me based on last week. I think if Ludwig did something different to what I thought he would do, which was get in contention, then fall away on Saturday and then have a low round, he played out exactly how I thought it would. Like maybe he finished a little bit higher than I expected, but like it played out exactly the same way. Like he got in contention Saturday pretty rough, and then Sunday when he was out of the picture, he could kind of go again. So I think there's two players now that could really secure a spot, and one of them wasn't really on my radar. Does Bjork get in with a win?
No, he'd be terrible at Marcus. I feel like
I know, but like he's been so good.
Yeah.
Like if he what you're saying to Alexander Bjork is like, if you don't get in this year, you're never going to get in, because we just don't think you can play a Ryder Cup, which is fine. Like I completely get that, but like if him winning this week doesn't really matter, then I don't know. Like outside of Aberg and Højgaard, who it really matters to, I guess Moronk. But like, does Matt Wallace going 2-1 change anything? Like he didn't get in with 3 wins in the season.
Yeah, I mean I guess I think it's Moronk or Aberg. I think Nikolai's a lock.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine them leaving him off the team over Aberg.
Well, because and he did well in that thing earlier in the year as well, right? Like, what was it, the forget what they call it, like the Sevi Trophy or whatever it was, like, and he played well, and they were talking glowingly about him. And I just think, look, we know he's a perfect course fit. He's done it there before, so yeah, I think Moronk's in a little bit of a precarious position. The fact that he's still not done enough.
That's like I would pick Aberg over him right now. For me, I just think the ceiling's higher personally.
I think the trouble is with that is that like, so Moronk basically is exactly what Aberg did last week, except Aberg clawed it back on Sunday. And I think the difference with Aberg is he's so used to these kind of volatile rounds, whereas like Moronk, if he because he was 13th going into the weekend, Moronk, and instead of building on it, just had a bad Saturday. And whereas like Aberg's bad Saturday was like 71, Moronk's was 77. So this, I guess, depends on how much they'll put into course experience. Because like if it's a course experience, then Moronk has to go, right? But if they just think that Aberg,
like, isn't like Aberg just set up perfectly for the course, right? Could he like really well there? That's my question. Like, is there too much stock into a win there when he wasn't? I don't know. I don't know. It's
Well, the argument you got to have is like if Aberg played it for the last 4 years, could he have won it? And the answer would probably be no, because he would have been like 14 or whatever he would have been when like they
well,
first.
the funny thing is though, I mean, he's older than the Højgaards, right? Like that's because he did the reverse, like what they did. I mean, they went pro. I don't know, man. It's difficult. It's hard.
It's just really hard with Aberg because like a part of me absolutely sees the idea of blooding in someone young and someone that's going to be on these teams to come, if that's the trajectory he's on. I understand that. Then there's the factor of like there is just no denying the fact that he just goes nuclear at any point. Like he goes 5. I think he did it on like Sunday or on Friday. He had like 4 or 5 birdies in a row to start his round. Like that is the golfer he is, and that's perfect for Ryder Cup. I think ultimately one of the things they've got to answer is like how often are they going to ask these last couple of guys in to play? Like are they literally going to play like one match in the singles and everyone else just going to rely on because Rory, Rahm, Hovland, Fleetwood, Hatton, they're going to get played a lot, right?
Yeah. Maybe I'm just being hard on Meronk. I don't know.
No, I think it's fair. Like I think it was just one of those ones where like to me in my head 2 weeks ago, no one was really taking it off of Meronk, and there was no real reason to leave him out. But now Aberg continues to play well. I mean, I guess the real test would be like how well does he play this week? Because the course last week was much more suitable, I think. Like, and I say that in the sense that like Aberg would struggle here, but his edge is gone. Yeah. Like his off the tee edge is gone. So it then comes down to his iron play, which was improved last week. He was 25th in the field in strokes gained approach, which
best irons he's had in a while. Yeah.
So I was actually really close to, and I didn't in the end, but I was really close to actually picking him this week. You know, the discussion you had last week about like if he had been 16 or 18 to 1, you'd have picked him. I mean, he's 18 to 1 this week. So I think this is about as close as I've been to betting on Aberg, despite the fact there's been kind of 40s and 50s around him earlier on in the PGA Tour season. He's shown that he can do it under the pressure like he did last week. He just still probably hasn't shown the winning aspect just yet.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we have another Monday to discuss this before.
We do.
Right? Because it's, well, I don't know if Donald's picking on Monday or Tuesday. Do we know that?
Let's have a look.
Today we'll tweet our thoughts. But
yeah, I think we can probably immediately react on Sunday, right? Like in some sort of form. We'll know pretty early on. Like I think there'll probably only be 2 of these guys that really matter involved on Sunday, and it might be that I think only one of them is probably going to be in contention to win. So I think it's going to be, does someone shoot a 62 right in front of Eduardo Molinari or whatever? Like it could be really important. So yeah, I think the point you made earlier about it being a statistical thing is going to probably play more of a factor because of Eduardo Molinari being on the team. Like he do Hovland's and Fitzpatrick's stats.
I did not know that. I would make
I'm sure he does at least Fitzpatrick's.
Okay.
I
love it.
So I think like he could be a big factor. We'll get more into that in a minute. But like, yeah, that's my current thoughts is that I think Meronk is really on the edge. I still haven't seen enough from Ludwig to say definitively take him, but I'm much more at ease with someone taking him over him this time around.
Yep.
Whereas Sepp, I think, did enough at the Tour Championship just to kind of go, let's take him.
Yeah, Sepp's T6 at the Tour Championship in stroke play is exponentially better than those finishes, in my opinion, on those guys. But we could talk all day on that. We need to transfer over to the event of the week.
Yeah.
So we're recording on Monday. As of now, the DraftKings salaries have not been released for the Omega European Masters. So our plan is to split this show into 2 parts. Today, Monday, per usual, being our betting show, break down our cards for the week. And then Tuesday, come back with a hitter over the DraftKings salaries plays this week. And why it's so important, and hopefully we're getting some new faces, some new listens this week, is there is a $100,000 prize, first place to DraftKings this week and their flagship contest. Since you and I have started this podcast, Tom, we have never crossed into 6 figures before. It's massive for us. Let's hope we can get it filled and have more rewards, because we've been dwindling all season down to very small prizes. And for not even having an event that is co-sanctioned or co-parted together. This isn't a Scottish Open, right? This is a true DP World Tour event and Ryder Cup implications and massive DFS time for us. So we're going to spend some quality time going over that tomorrow. This will be up Monday evening, our betting show. So we'll stick it per usual for that and spend some time digesting and be ready for one of us to take home 6 figures this week, because that's really cool waking up to that this morning on a Monday. And there's other contests with some really good prizes as well. So ample opportunity for those who want to continue the golf season, even though, the PGA Tour might have just wrapped up yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Like, we do need to fill these, because we talk about, we love playing them anyway, but RB and Axis and people talk to just consistently putting lineups in, and you want to reward those guys with these kind of big fields, and there's never been a better time. I mean, like, even the Irish Open and Wentworth could be really important. It's just that there will be PGA Tour events that week, and that will eat into the kind of prize pot, I imagine. But if people fill up this week and we're showing appetite prior up into the lead of the Ryder Cup, then there's some big names in that Wentworth field. That's going to be the bigger event that week. So potentially it could happen again at the BMW PGA.
Yep. Super excited for that. And let's just dive right in, right? Omega European Masters. For those that have tuned in to any DP World Tour events in the past, Cran-Soucier is the golf course this week. Among the most beautiful sights that you'll ever see in golf. Just full of the mountains, full of elevation. And it's a trickier type of course. It's you brought it up earlier when talking Aberg. I think Coley said it well. It's a game of chess, in the sense of you can't just bomb and gouge it. You're going to have to play from fairways. You're going to have to work around tree-lined fairways. You're going to need to hit approaches into elevated greens on top of the elevation that you're playing at in the mountains. We've seen names of guys who have really, really good short games and came and delivered that in victories here in the past around the green. Pops even more than a usual week. We've seen the likes of, obviously, Rory McIlroy be in contention, even though it's power driven, but you've seen him get beat in a playoff by Sebastian Soderberg. We've seen Matthew Fitzpatrick win back-to-back years here in the past. It's a course that I am super excited to watch and kind of wager on every single year. If we look, even previous winners, Thriston Lawrence was last year over Matt Wallace. Rasmus Højgaard, again, if we stuck from a power standpoint, had one here in 2021 as well. So just a lot to love this week. Any more course thoughts overall?
No, I think the important thing is that you could see 61s and 62s here. Like, we saw them, I think, Norcom Waller shot 61 last year, potentially. Rosner shot 62 in the final round previously. Like, you will see those scores. But like you say, when Ben referenced it, like, it is a case of you have to play this really smartly. Like, you can tear the course apart, but you have to do it strategically. You don't tear it apart by free winning off the tee. So you can drive several of the par fours, but no one really tries to, because it brings in so much trouble. And I think it's potentially one of the most scenic, is the most scenic golf course on the DP World Tour. It's probably one of the most scenic golf courses in the world. And look, I think when you look back, it's changed obviously in recent years, but from 2002 to 2005, you had Robert Carlson, Ernie Els, Luke Donald, and Sergio Garcia win. And then 2009 onwards, Alex Noren, Miguel Angel Jimenez, Thomas Bjorn, Richie Ramsey, Thomas Bjorn again. Then you had David Lipsky win, who, big fan of. Noren, Fitzpatrick. So you get pretty much the best players contend and win here. And Rasmus Højgaard and Bernd Wiesberger in 2021 would have been the two top players. I would have thought two of the top players in the field that week. So whilst you had Thriston Lawrence and Matt Wallace change things a little bit, whilst you've had Soderberg beat Rory McIlroy and then 3 others that you wouldn't necessarily put in a playoff, you do get the classier winners win. So I do think you have to go to the top of the market. It's going to be all in that approach play, all wedges, all short irons. That's not to say you can't benefit from driving it straight off the tee, Sky. Like, I don't think it's completely negated off the tee stuff, but the power is negated. Yeah. There is a few drivable par fours.
We've seen guys attack it. I think there was a stretch of a few holes in a row. Hole 6 is the one I believe that you can drive pretty much anybody in the field. Now, again, power Power always plays in the sense that they'll be able to take lesser clubs into tighter
Yeah.
spots and, be able to have a tighter dispersion from that standpoint. So does always be a benefit hitting those type of clubs, but it also brings different golfers into play compared to last week, where it truly played out once again to be exactly what we thought it would be. So top of the leaderboard or top of the odds board. I give it a little bit of a pass in the sense of, right, we're seeing Matthew Fitzpatrick. You mentioned Aberg. Pure talent, 16s and 18s is available. I think we still are ending up wading a little bit deeper into the cards. Maroc, who's again built like Nikolai Højgaard around power 2 near the top. We've seen a crashing number on Matt Wallace this morning out down to 25 after being popular. But you are leaning with the golfer who off the tee really puts himself, I think they said in the broadcast, social distancing from his partners when he's and that could be a true benefit this week for Alexander Bjork. So can you dive into why you really like him?
Yeah, so just for Bjork, I think ultimately he has done as well as he has this season, despite just lacking the most obvious skill set, right? Like every single week, his strokes gained approach play is absolutely phenomenal. And I think he's got the lowest score in average on tour. He's had 7 top 10s already, which has barely been beat if it has at all. He had that stretch of 4 top 10s in a row going into the Scottish Open. He didn't top 10 there, but he played pretty well. And then he made the cut at the Open Championship going into the final round. He was 25th. So you wondered how he was going to bounce back. My concern last week going to him was, one, off the tee, he's just severely handicapped, and 2, he was coming off a 4-week break, right? And you never know quite after all that run of form how you kind of bring things back. And then he's second after round 1, first after round 2. Shoots a 75 on Saturday. Aberg struggled on Saturday. Moronk struggled on Saturday. So there was clearly a tough scoring round. Todd Clements shot 69, who won it, but that was kind of one of the better scores of the day. So not too worried about that Saturday round. The fact that he bounced back again in the final round kind of suited me. So he finished in 14th place last week, pretty consistent. Then you look at his course form, and it's just 16th, 28th, 13th, 16th, which maybe sums up Alexander Bjork and his career, right? But it just feels a little bit different this season. He was third going into the final round on his debut here in 2017. And I just think that this is the best chance he's going to get to really get that second win. He's in form. He's hitting his irons and wedges really well. He's a strong putter at times. So I think there's not a better occasion for Alexander Bjork. If he's going to do it, it's going to be this week. And I do feel like it feels like he's got the winning mentality now. It's just that he hasn't got the real skills that you need. And what I think he might just have to, you always hate the idea of people going and changing their games based on distance, because it never tends to end well. But if he plays as well as he has all season, not been able to win, he probably needs to go and have a look at it.
What if you just put Ludwig and Bjork in two ball, and then Ludwig hits every drive, right?
Yep.
I guess you got to play the other holes, but if you play it well, then he gets at 420. Bjork,
but he's so accurate though, isn't he? So it's not like he's I say so accurate. He goes. That's the problem. He goes kind of like in and out, doesn't he? Right? Like I think he can be deadly accurate, and he's not every week, which is why he doesn't win. But I just trust him. I just think the putter's there. It has been for the last 10, 12 weeks. His approach play has been solid for an extended period of time now on tougher golf courses, and this is the one, as his course form, kind of evidence that suggests that he can get in contention. So I don't see him finishing outside the kind of top 5 this week.
Yep. I can absolutely see that. I'm going to go to a golfer that we debated heavily last week. The one who did not show up on the leaderboard anywhere because he missed the cut in his professional DP World Tour debut, and that is Adrian Dumont de Chessart.
Yep.
I mentioned last week that the number, people were jumping on the 28s early on. I understood that, but the course fit was not there. Korn Ferry Tour does not do as great of a job of looking at statistics, from obviously a shot length standpoint. So people don't really know his game all that much. But if you do dive in and see, he has never been inside the top 10 on a from the distance on any of his Corn Ferry Tour events. He's regular in the 20s to 40s for those. Where he excels, though, is the rest of the course. And accuracy, again, is not even something for him either. If you look at the first 4 events that he had in greens and regulation on the Corn Ferry Tour, 3rd, 12th, 12th, 7th. He had another 10th in there. His last few events have tailed off, but at some point he pretty much did have his PGA Tour card locked up in a 4-week standpoint, right? And then once you get close or on the greens, top 5 in scrambling in the best putter on the PGA or on the Corn Ferry Tour from that standpoint. If we're looking at what is now here for this week, that much more aligns compared to the power test of what we saw. And now we're getting a bigger number at 35 to 1. I think pressure's off too. You say Bjork might not get it with a win. I don't think Dumont de Chassard is probably going to get it either, right? So it is just more of a carefree type of week, I think, for Dumont de Chassard. He's got the PGA Tour card locked up, gets to play over here in a much better fit at a bigger number. I love it at 35 to 1 this week. And we rarely get the each ways here in the States. There's a let me look it up. There's 33. I think I'm going to end up landing, on the 33 to 1 with the 1/5 out to top 6. So, right, you're going to still get, what's that? 7, 6.5 to 1 for top 6 with that, right? So, count that on my card to start.
Yeah, I think you were bang on about him last week. Like, I think people have this in their head that young players coming out of college to go and do well on the Corn Ferry Tour must be big hitters. Like, I think that's just a conception, right? And most of the time they're right. That is generally how it's charged. But you took a little deeper dive in, that wasn't necessarily what you saw. It was his putting last week that cost him. His putting was terrible at the Czech Masters. And yes, he lost strokes in 2 of the 4 categories anyway, but he did gain off the tee, which was a surprise. So if he can kind of bring some of that accuracy over, or some of the strokes gained off the tee, if you like, and add in the kind of wedge play and iron play that we've seen from the Corn Ferry Tour, there's no reason why he can't go well. So just on talent alone, Dumont de Chassard should probably be kept tabs on. I think you're right. I think that last week there was potentially, like, if he did well and he did well again, he could have at least been in the Ryder Cup conversation. Now he hasn't done 2 in a row. It's not going to happen. So he is freewheeling, and what he's looking at is, can he get himself into the Wentworth field and things like that, is how he's going to finish off his season before he goes into the PGA Tour. So do like that. Another person from America I haven't gone on, but like Justin Suhr is right below him in the odds board. Like, this is a guy that people have been betting on the PGA Tour for good parts of the season. Hasn't been able to get a win over there yet, but be interesting to see how he comes over talent-wise at 40 to 1. But I'm going right back, Sky, with Antoine Rosner. I was impressed with him last week. He was 10th going into the final round. Didn't quite hold that on, but 22nd was fine. His iron play got better every round last week. He was 5th and 15th over the final 2 rounds in strokes gained approach. So, look, he didn't quite do exactly what I wanted him to do last week. He didn't have that approach play all week, but he did it over the weekend, and that was enough for me. And I think he's probably being slightly overlooked here because his course form is great. His course form is absolutely brilliant. As I said earlier in the show, he has got a final round 62 here on his debut. That was only good enough to see him finished 13th, but last year he was 4th and he finished 65, 64, 66. So opening up with a 70 was really damning for Rosner. So for me, the way he's playing, the consistency that he's showing, even when he hasn't necessarily got his whole game and the whole package, is enough for me to take Rosner at 34 to 1 again. Yeah.
A lot to really, really like in regards to Raz. I'll be very curious on a DFS price for him because you'll probably find this middling zone as you maybe get into the 9s or 8s. Be curious on that pricing.
Yeah.
Rasmus has been priced down as a previous winner into the 20s. Jordan Smith is teeing it up too. Victor Perez, pretty much an outside chance. I guess he could automatically qualify if things fall his way with a win. Yannick Paul, seen a good amount of interest on the betting boards there, still out to 42.
But Paul's interesting, this guy, because he's another one that people, I think, have this kind of idea that he hits it quite long and he doesn't. Like, he's short off the tee and does his stuff with kind of like, strokes gained approach and wedge play as well. So he is someone that could benefit, especially considering he played well at the Czech Masters last week, could benefit from this course, hasn't played here before. I just want, what do you think, Skylar? Do you think he's a type that will crumble under the pressure of potentially getting that automatic spot?
No, I mean, What do you have? A good like first round in the Scottish and fell off from there.
Yeah. Like does he? Will he struggle more? Like because he generally struggles to actually get over the line, right? He gets in contention a lot and hasn't necessarily got the wins that he's played himself into at times. Is that going to be any worse because he's potentially got this Ryder Cup spot on the line, or is it just going to be, look, he has a hard time winning anyway, it's not going to change?
I probably go with the latter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard not to be front of mind, but also in his position, like he's got to know he's not being a captain's pick, correct? He's not. Was he in the premier groups last week? I don't think he wasn't in like the big time ones.
No, and look, I don't think he's ever really even been talked about. And,
yeah.
and I think these stories come out for a reason. The one like the reporters report on who Luke Donald and team want them to report on, right? Like, and that's not, there's nothing against that. Like, that's what you want. You know, you're trying to gauge, think tank feelings on it, right? I do think he would have to win and get himself on the team. So, like I said, the opposite of McIntyre last week, who is still in slightly in that spot. Like, I do think that's a good spot for Paul to be in, that he knows he needs to win to get in. But yeah, I just wonder. Like, I think it's a good golf course for him.
Yeah, I think guys that played well last week when it wasn't their skill set is always a fun sign to see. And for me, one of those very well golfers who, now this would be a lot of fun. You get them on the Ryder Cup together. We get a brother duo of Matthew Fitzpatrick and Alex Fitzpatrick. Alex Fitzpatrick has, had, I would almost say, a renaissance the last 6 weeks, or I guess even 8 weeks. Including the Challenge Tour, his Open Championship. That was absolutely phenomenal, where he finished 17th. The win at the British Challenge. He immediately finished second at the ISPS Honda. And then last week, 14th at the Czech Masters with some incredible irons. Little Fitzy's game is built more around irons and chipping around the green, and what Matthew said, right?
He's old Matthew, isn't he? Like he's Matthew before the distance.
Yeah, because I think Matt said that power putting, and then Alex is the opposite, right? With irons and chipping. And I didn't expect Alex to be around last week. Played quite well once again. This seems to be, a great spot, a great setup for him. His course profile, you can find him 50s with that T6 each way here in the States too. Just at this point, he's already wrapped up his DP World Tour card. Sky's the limit for what the kid can be. And I love setting him up here.
Yeah, I think he took care of a lot with that top finish at the Open Championship, right? Like, I think that wasn't obviously enough to kind of lock up his card, I don't think, but he then kind of knew he belonged with that 17th place finish at the Open Championship, wins at the British Challenge 2 weeks later, has one miscut immediately after, absolutely fine with that, and then straight back into second at the ISPS Honda, 14th last week, like you say, actually got progressively better throughout the week. And as you say, the irons were great. And look, there's two sets of brothers here, and everyone would have said that Rasmus and Nikolai would be the two brothers that could be on the Ryder Cup team. And interestingly, Nikolai's got Rasmus to learn from in terms of a course win, and Alex has got Matt Fitzpatrick. Right? There's not a better player in this field than Matt Fitzpatrick in terms of course form. So, and I don't think he's the type that, I'm sure they're competitive, but like he wants his brothers to do well. He always talks about him, always bigs him up. So I think that he will help him to that. And look, I said to you, I think I said in this show last week, like, is there any chance that he's going to be in Luke Donald's ear trying to encourage him? I don't think it's going to happen, but like if he won this week, there will be discussions about it late. Like,
absolutely.
It's probably not, like, I don't think there's a world where it can happen, because it's just, how can you like justify it and leave some of the other people off that you're saying is not enough? How would you leave Aberg off, I guess, basically. But he's proven himself. Like, we were talking about him last year as like it's good how well he's doing in limited starts, and he's got a lot to play for, and he's going to make a big impact. And now, like you say, he's taken care of his tour card. He's now playing with the freedom that you hear all these players talking about after their winning interviews. Like, the reason I won was because I wasn't playing for my card, I was playing to win. I love his game for this. I think he is Matt Fitzpatrick, what Matt Fitzpatrick was 5, 6, 7 years ago, and that obviously works well here. So let's go in at him at 50 to 1 when his brother's less than 10 to 1.
Yep. Absolutely. Super excited for him. And that's alignment. I love aligning with you on that. Another one that caught my eye, that was a little bit of performance last week, is the young gun Rio Histatune. Now, remember, he has yet to turn 21 years old, and he had DP World Tour card that includes this year 1, 2, 3. I believe we're up to 6. Yeah, 6 top 10s for him so far this year. Last week, the Czech Masters finished 14th. But if you look at the way he got to that, right, he was somebody that had that hot start. So I think he was inside the top, 5 going into the 54 holes. He was second after 18. And he just had what I think is a really consistent year overall with good finishes. Barracuda, I guess, a little bit of elevation at Lake Tahoe compared to it. Played well there with a top 10 in basically, a co-sanctioned type of event, and accurate, short game driven type of golfer. If any spot for him to break through, remember he did finish 12th at the Zozo Championship too to kick off the 2022-2023 season, as he had this elevated status. I think the kid can absolutely play. I've been waiting for the moment to be on him. 66s were bet down. I mean, this morning I think he was maybe even had triple digits there, but I really still like him in this type of setup on this course where you're going to need to putt it, and you're going to need to at least compete from a different standpoint, because he is not gaining distance on the field. He's going to be in the fairway most of the time, and that can play here.
Yeah, look, I think this is a tournament where you look at these guys. I mean, I think you're going to come on to another one in a minute, like where they need these types of courses to really win. Like, it's as simple as that. It levels the playing field. It's absolutely what it does. You do still get the big hitters. I mean, as you said, Rasmus Højgaard beats Bernd Wiesberger, and then you've got Matt Fitzpatrick beating Lucas Bjerregaard, Rory losing the playoff twice. But the difference is Rory McIlroy lost in a playoff twice to Jean-Francois Lequin and Sebastian Soderberg. So it happens, and I think that is ultimately what it is. Like, I think we're getting to the point of the season, Sky, where you take these guys, if you believe they can win, you've got to take them in these kind of spots, because the Irish Open is going to lean into a certain type of player. Wentworth always leans into a certain type of player and generally goes to the classier field, right? So I think at this point, it's not a case of like, look, you haven't got a chance to bet very often in 2023, like just get it done. There is more substance to it than that. Like, what I liked about Hitzersohn last week is that he played well despite not doing great with his ball striking, right? Like, he wasn't great with his irons and tee screen like he has been in the past. So I think he can bring that wedge game back and that short iron game back, and I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about him. And then this is the first time we are seeing Nathan Kimsey after he played so well in the States. Oh, not the first time. He did play last
week. Yeah.
But just coming around again to be more on the side of
for the first time with a realistic chance, I think, Sky, since coming back from the States.
Yes, perfectly said there. Because, I mean, I think, again, if you're looking at parallels, last week was middling for him, right? T31 finish overall with a little bit of spikes, but, 68, 69 weekend, made the cut safely. But if we look at what we've seen from him, right, he had that 10th. Again, he's only had five starts now since returning from a lengthy absence from what he had, and that included the 10th over at the Maiden Himmerlin, and then the 2nd at the Barbasol, 25th at the Barracuda, with being inside the top 10 after 54 holes for him, which includes a pair of 65s. I just love him at this type of setup now. Once again, built around accurate in the rest of the bag. Irons were pretty okay, I would say. Did win, on the Challenge Tour. Arguably was a Challenge Tour Player of the Year last year, getting back up here at the age of 30 years old. A lot to love for me for Nathan Kimsey.
Yeah, I think, look, he showed that period, and I think people were very keen to bet on him after he come back from America, and last week just wasn't really the week. He was 17th in strokes gained approach, so he hit his irons and wedges well again, just probably at a handicap for the distance, right? He's never been a distance player, can come here and play well. I'm not sure he's actually played the course. Let me just have a look on that. No, so he's never played here in the past, but I don't think that's necessarily a massive handicap. Rasmus won his debut, Tristan Lawrence won. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last two winners are one on debut. Fitz missed the cut on his debut and then finished second and seventh first. So like you can bounce back from not, having the kind of course history. Even Richie Ramsey missed cut 34th first. Like so, but Soderbergh won on debut. So there'll be a talk of like course form and course experience is vital, but the three of the last 5 winners have won on debut. So would be interesting really to see, because I think sometimes like the kind of train of thought, and it's a fair one, is like you want someone that is good at calculating for the altitude, right, and changing the distances for it and the experience of that. But sometimes it might just play in your mind too much. You might just want the guy that just turns up for the first time, enjoys it, hits their irons and wedges. As long as you've got a good caddy on the bag, I think anyone can do it. So, yeah, I don't think that's a massive handicap. And I think, like you say, it's a good golf course for him. And take the positives from someone that played well last week. I've got someone that finished in exactly the same position with him later on, and very similar reasons.
Yep. So we're gonna keep rolling here. One more before we hit triple digits, and it's our man. He's back. He was gallivanting with his girlfriend across everywhere you could imagine. I saw him in Ibiza for a little bit, partying it up. And, I think there was a reason to celebrate for Guido Migliozzi, because what he did leading into that break was 5 straight made cuts, Tom. We got a little form out of our guy, Guido. And, what was really, I think, under the radar and unexpected to me, right, going and showing up at the Open Championship this year at Royal Liverpool, off the radar completely, right? Like, I think he had some hype the year prior in the Open Championship, and Guido was 10th going into the weekend, 20th going into Sunday, before he got blown off the planet and did shoot an 80. But what we had seen, BMW International Open was really strong. That Fred British Masters, when the world was on him and he was the 54-hole leader, finishes 28th, right? Himmerland, not good, makes the cut though. And then, again, Scottish Open, when you look at an event that is up in, I guess, pedigree or up in field, 26 of the first round, a made cut. There was parallels in some ways to what Sammy Valimaki did. Sammy last week wasn't really on my radar. But again, he was 78th and 68th in those two events. You saw him fist pumping like crazy at the Open Championship when he made the cut on Friday. And then he comes up and, he plays absolutely spectacular and finishes 4th last week. I think Guido had a similar stretch of golf that really is kind of, under the radar. We see him at a course that he has a top 7 finish at 2 times ago, which was really good, and 2 other made cuts for Guido at this event. I just think, again, in that first, I think he's got 2 65s in his bag here. First time he played here, opening round 65, second time 65 to close. So I think a lot of parallels running into Guido at this type of event. His accuracy has been better. Again, his around the green is exponentially improved. I like him regardless for the setup here. And 80-1, you can find him this week.
Yeah, this is a guy that we talk about creativity and that being a benefit for Migliozzi. I just don't. He's not great at these places where it's like just hit it 350 yards, hit it again, putt it, and hope for a birdie. Like as much as I think he can do that distance wise, he just doesn't seem to get him going. He needs to see the shots, I think. And to your point, he opened with a 65 on his debut, closed with a 65 on his second start. But more importantly, there's been consistent 66s. Like he closed with a 66 on debut. He had 2 last year, and yeah, I think the main difference between, I think you've got to make a great point and kind of drawing parallels with him and Valimaki. The difference is Valimaki's played here once and missed the cut, whereas Guido's got the top 10 finish, right? And pretty steady form other than that as well. So I'm not going to try and talk you off Guido Migliozzi. It's basically pointless, but some more context there, I guess, for the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your support always. All right. So we'll pick up. We have Tom's nibbling with 2 triple-digit guys here that he likes a lot, and then we're getting deep into the weeds for a couple of mine. So Tom, can you go back to back?
Yeah. So Edoardo Molinari, as I mentioned earlier about playing in front of him could be really important, and I feel like we've looked at Edoardo Molinari a lot and sort of then decided, no, that's not going to happen. Like, I think last year we did a lot of kind of backing him and going, oh, well, if the putter gets right, we'll go with it and it'll work. And then we kind of gave up on that theory this year that this putter's not going to get right. The good news is he has spoken to Adam Scott at the Open Championship, looked at him with his broomstick putter and copied him. And he ranked 29th in strokes gained putting last week with it for the first time. So he's now returned to a golf course. So in 2009, he started with a 14th and then went 2nd, 12th and 13th here. And even last year, he was 29th, but I don't think he was in great form coming in either. 20th in strokes gained approach and tee to green last week, on top of the 29th in strokes gained putting. It's been a really solid performance all round for him. And the putter is ultimately the difference. I think it's a perfect golf course for him. I still think it's one of those ones where we saw Thomas Bjorn and Miguel Angel Jimenez kind of compete until their later years and even win in their later years. And he's the type that I think is still capable of that. We know he is a multiple winner on the DP World Tour. And I just think he's the type that will take a lot of pride. I think we've seen it with Donald a few times. Take a lot of pride of playing well in front of the guys they're asking to play well. Like, if he's sitting there going, look, Ludwig proved to me that you deserve to be in a Ryder Cup team, there's no good him missing the cut. He will want to be in the heat of the battle with him and say, come and beat me on Sunday to earn your spot. So whether that's a little bit kind of fanatical, I don't know, but I like it. And I think the putter helps.
Dubé San showed up for the first time in forever last week and made the cut, no problem, right? Like, these guys can show it up from that side. I actually even thought Luke Donald was a little bit interesting after he had some okay showings, but I think Dodo Molinari's fitting very, very well here.
I think like the difference between those two is, one, Molinari probably for an extended period of recent years has still been competitive, whereas Donald would fire a low round and then kind of disappear. But yeah, I mean, like, he's shown up. I think it's definitely a course where I think veterans can play well, and that's ultimately the key. I mean, Miguel Angel Jimenez is playing this week, which I love. It'd be lovely to see him make the cut. I'm sure he'll make a few DK lineups, whatever price he is. But yeah, I think ultimately with Molinari, it's that broomstick putter. If he hadn't changed that, I probably wouldn't be interested, because I think that we'd still be having the same conversation of, okay, he played well, but the putter's so bad. But that was basically what charged his decent performance last week. So in on that. And then the other one was John Catlin, who I feel like you maybe have brought up recently and either not gone to him or it just didn't really pan out. But he is the type of player that very much needs a certain golf course. He plays well in South Africa. I think he's played well in Kenya in the past. And Valderrama has a lot of crossover, and he's obviously won there and competed a couple of times as well. And we talk about players that play well at courses that don't suit them. Last week, he opened with 73, but he shot second round 67 to make the cut, and then 70, 67 over the weekend. And he is not a big hitter. He is Nathan Kimsey. He finished 31st with Nathan Kimsey. But on top of that, he was 5th in approach last week, which is key for John Catlin. Like, if his short irons and wedges are not dialed in, there's no point in betting him. But they are as of last week. And that was coming off a pretty rough period of events, right? I mean, he's missed, 5 in a row. The last time he made the cut was at the Scandinavian Mix, where he was 4th going into the weekend. So he's shown that when he makes the cut, he's kind of competitive. And that, plus the fact that when he played here 2 years ago, he was 21st, and he was 9th going into the weekend, 6th going into the final round, and then finished 21st. So I think Catlin's definitely got enough to get in the mix. We know if he does get in the mix, he can win, because he's shown that to us multiple times. So yeah, I like Catlin. I think he's got plenty to, I don't know if he's got plenty to prove, because he's kind of got his wins, but like, I think he wants to prove that he's not just going to go away, which is definitely a potential risk. So 150 to 1 with the life he showed last week, definitely that approach play. I really like John Catlin.
Absolutely. I think he lined up really, really well. Somebody who has won off of basically no form the last time at that Austrian event that I think we tipped him up that week too. Yep. So yes, very, very interesting when we look into him. Make sure I'm going to give a shout out to our audio listeners before we wrap up the betting cards here. Again, you can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets the Mix, Mayo Media Network. Please rate, review, subscribe. Goes a long, long way. Again, I'm hoping we get a bunch of eyeballs this week, Tom, as we step into uncharted territory for these DK contests. Again, 2 shows for us this week. will be available both on YouTube and on the audio formats. So looking forward to both aspects of that. I leaderboard watch a ton. I think we both do, right? We wake up in the morning where we're checking scores. You're seeing guys on front page of leaderboards, and a big part of the way that you go about your work is looking at, round by round data, or maybe who was first after 36 and then had a bad weekend. And there's two golfers, in my opinion, that have done that, and two that I think really highly of in their, I guess, range or where they're normally priced at, and two golfers who are much better suited at this type of course than any other one that we're normally going to see. That first one, for me, is the one and only Pedro Figueiredo. Pedro has, we went kind of, you brought him up last week, right?
Yeah.
We went into a conversation about him, and coming from his distance, and we talked to Alexander Bjork. I mean, Pedro might be the only one shorter than him.
I'd love to see them have a drive off. They should do like DP World Tour content of who can hit it the furthest.
I mean, he's averaging a good 20 yards less than the field average most weeks, right? So, Pedro coming up here, finishing 22nd last week at that. He must almost have a knack, because he did it at the Porsche European Open too, where he was 14th that week on some bigger courses, that when he finds himself carrying his game, now those weeks often come with putter spikes, right? Sudal Open, even, he had that. I mean, he's gotten it done at some bigger tracks where he finished really well. But, Figueiredo is somebody who's built around, if he can be playing out of the fairway, in which he did really good at the ISPS Honda, and then Czech Masters, he was above the field, but he's just got a game that I think can be scrappy. And the big thing is, again, we see him. I mean, you look at the events. I texted you, I think it would have been Saturday morning, when Pedro was waking up inside the top 10 going into the weekend, right? I guess he was fifth going into the weekend. And then you looked at him the previous time out, he was 10th at the halfway point at the ISPS Honda. That is just a recipe for me to really, really get in on. So I guess that, plus the fact that he's 1,000 to 1 this week, right? You get Pedro.
That's the thing. Like, you're not asking him. You're not saying, okay, well, he's finished 38th and 22nd. He's trending. Let's pick him at 50 to 1. You're still picking him at 1,000 to 1, and like you say, he was 9th going into the weekend at the ISPS Honda. He was 5th when you messaged me. But more impressively, Sky, I think that yes, the Open was 767, but even his bad week last week was like a 72. And we've already mentioned the people that struggled on Saturday. There was plenty of them. I mean, it's not a great shake that he did that. And then you go into the fact that actually he's played the golf course twice, and he finished 35th on debut, shooting 3 rounds below 60, 68 or better. The only thing with Figueiredo is I just don't know like what the ceiling is with Figueiredo. Like, is a top 5 or a top 10 like his absolute best? But I guess you're factoring in that when you're backing him at 1,000 to 1, knowing that the top 5 and the top 10 price are going to be good.
Yeah, if you look at it, so the each way books over here don't have him at 1,000, but you could go get 130 to 1 on a top 5 at DraftKings, 45 to 1 for a top 10, 14 to 1 for a top 20. So I'm going to ladder those guys out down to there. So I do think very highly. He won a small mini series event during their break. I mean, you're right? He was really good in the Challenge Tour in 2018 with a victory. Pro Golf Tour used to light up 17, 16. I mean, he had a pretty decent pedigree as an amateur overall. So, he has some to him now. He's 32 years old, right? Spent some time, and he hasn't really kicked on in a big way. But Pedro is one for me there. And then just again, another golfer who I view very, very similar to, and is almost rinse and repeat of that recipe, and that is Manu Gandis. Manu Gandis, 1,000 to 1 once again, and we can ladder that out. Top 5 for Gandis. He's a little bit shorter in that market. Actually, just kidding. He's 150 to 1 right now on the top 5. Top 10, 50 to 1, and then top 20, 18 to 1 just released for Gandis. you look at the exact same recipe of what he did. So Gondis finished 20th at the ISPS Honda, where he was third after the first round, 10th going into the final round. Last week, he opened up and he was fifth, I believe, after the first round, seventh after the first round. Had a troubling Saturday, just like many, troubling Friday. Closed with a 68. That was okay. And Gondis, I mean, just from a leaderboard standpoint, has just seemed to pop up a few more times than we recently had. We had bet him, it was, which one? It would have been, I'm trying to think, we were all in on him together at the Hero Indian Open, where he had his 32nd finish after he had played well in Thailand. And the reason why we liked him so much at the Indian Open, right? He came from the PGA Tour of India, where he had won 6 times the previous year. So we know he has that type of ceiling kind of in him, kind of middling numbers. I mean, he's not long off the tee. He can hit some fairways, but his short game is what's going to drive him. So if it's literally a mimic of Figueiredo with Gondis at the same odds down the board, and somebody that I have kept an eye on onto the year. So at a course that sets up where these guys can really thrive, I think both of them make outstanding, hopefully DraftKings sleepers, probably pretty close to the minimum this week that we'll see tomorrow. But man, top 20s with them, if you get top 40s even in markets this week, I think both of those two make a ton of sense.
And look, we said last week, right? And more for me maybe for not betting them, but like Nick Backham, 4th, Alejandro Del Rey, 25th. Styles make these events, and I think sometimes we're guilty of just like, okay, look, if they haven't finished 10th, 8th, 6th, 4th, then we think they can win. Then we kind of overlook these players, and I think what we both do a great job of doing, and not to pat ourselves on the back, but we do go round by round and say, like, look, they played well for 2 rounds, and it was at a course that doesn't necessarily suit them, or they just went in the water twice or whatever. And there's people out there that are doing great things with data where they're kind of taking out the one, abject kind of shot and breaking it down. So even Nicholas Norgard Moller last week, 14th. You just get these kind of things where you get a feeding on a player. Manu Gandas is someone that you follow. Pedro is someone that we've kind of followed as a bit of a cult figure on here. But I think you give these players a chance when the course is right, especially when they've shown something. Manu Gandas has shown multiple times now that he can play well at suitable golf courses. He can win at certain levels. Do I think they're going to win? No, but they're 1,000 to 1, so it doesn't really matter. I think that there's a bunch of names, right? And I'm going to save like the actual full spin on them for the DraftKings show because there'll be some good content for that. But like, there's a couple of players that I looked at, both 300 to 1. JC Ritchie playing some good golf. Will Besseling led the field in approach last week. Has got some decent course and correlative form.
The field, he led it by 3 strokes with a mediocre Sunday.
Yeah, which concerns me that like you can't replicate that, which is ultimately why I've not gone there. And the fact that every single time I've ever thought Will Besseling is going to play well, he doesn't. So I think he's a DraftKings play for me rather than the bet, because I don't necessarily think even if he was, right up there, he would win. But yeah, like I think there's names. Zanotti played well last week, and he's got the perfect profile for this. So there's 3 or 4 names. There's one escaping me right now that I can't exactly remember who it was, but there's a few out there that I kind of thought about that were just kind of close, and this is the week to take them because this course definitely levels the playing field. You can get a bit of a shock here, even when the best players are playing, and this is the first time this event has really mattered, I think, for the Ryder Cup picks. I think most of the time people will come in here either warming up for the Ryder Cup, or I don't think people have come here trying to get on the Ryder Cup team. So I really like how this week sets up for some of these long shots who don't necessarily have the pressure on them. Henny Du Plessis was the other one I was thinking of. He's 85 to 1 playing Swift Golf.
Yep, absolutely. And again, we'll go thoroughly through the field tomorrow and for the salaries on a DFS standpoint. But before we wrap up, let's review our betting cards. Tom, here you start, please.
Yeah, so 28 to 1 Alexander Bjork, 34 to 1 Antoine Rosner, 50 to 1 Alex Fitzpatrick together there. And then I go with Eduardo Molinari, 100 to 1. And then John Catlin is 150 to 1 best price. That's my team for now.
Awesome. I'm on Adrian Dumont de Chisar. He's 33-1 with that T6 each way. Alex Fitzpatrick with you, 50s there with the each way 2 to T6. Histatune or Rio Histatune, 66-1 is the price with the T6 each way here. Nathan Kimsey is a little bit shorter in some of the each way markets. I'm on 70-1 with a top 5. Guido Migliazzi, of course, 80-1. Really, really like him with the top 6 each way. And then our 2 guys, Pedro Figueiredo and Manu Gandis, 1,000-1, laddered out with the top 5, 10, and 20 this week. So super excited for the Omega European Masters. This is a great kind of appetizer to tomorrow's show. Is one of our followers for sure going to win us 100K this week, Tom. I've got confidence in it.
Yeah, I mean, look, selfishly, I hope it's one of us. But like, if it's one of our followers, then great. I think that's the main end. The next best thing for us. If I can't win a ton of money, then I hope you do. So that's my approach. Look forward to it. I think it's going to be a great show. It's going to be good to talk DraftKings and it be meaningful for the DP World Tour, right? Like, I think that's the biggest difference. Is like we really want to focus on that from a standpoint. So looking forward to that. Sky, thank you as ever for the research, the hosting, and everything else that comes in between. And I look forward to tomorrow.
Awesome. Yep, absolutely. We'll see you guys then. Thank you again, Tom, and good luck, everybody.